Okay, I'm making a YouTube video on, basically I'm going to be making a vivarium, just showing some of the supplies you need. This isn't all the supplies because, I mean, obviously there's a lot, but got myself a couple cans of great stuff, which, anyways, I got some brown silicone caulk. I've heard you're supposed to only use silicone 1, but I heard that's more related to the mold inhibitors, that if you have like a lot of humidity and like a lot of sitting water, especially with frogs that absorb stuff in their skin, I've heard that's really where the issue lies. I've used this before and I've never had a problem with it. I would have got silicone 1, but again, Home Depot just like doesn't want to carry the stuff that I need. So basically this is it. I got this 29-gallon tank for $30. It's $1 a gallon at Petco. I suggest if anyone wants to do that. It doesn't have nice doors on it, but I think this will work fine. I'm going to be making this for a Leopard Gecko. I've already got another one set up. Never filmed anything on it, so I'm going to do a little step-by-step tutorial, and hope you like it. So anyways, I guess this is a big gap filler, now that I read it. I imagine this is going to expand pretty damn crazy. So I probably only needed the 1 can, especially it's a 16 ounce. I don't know. I'm going to give it a try. I'm just impatient and sick of making trips back and forth to department stores to find the right stuff. So I'm going to go with this. Let you guys know if this is any good. Well, there's a lot of videos out here about this, people using cork bark for the back wall. But I guess what's going to make, there's something on my hand. I guess when there's what's going to make mine different, should really get the camera right, is going to be that I'm not saying I'm the only one that's done this, but in my other tank I kind of made some nice little caverns out of this stuff, because while it is bark, it's kind of got a cool looking rock face to it. So what I'm going to show you how to do is I'm going to probably, I want this to be about up here. So what I think I'm going to do is maybe cut a little bit off, because I believe that I can use the rest for layering and doing some shells, give you, just maybe you guys could see it and it's inspire you to kind of do something similar. Again, I see people using these on the back wall, but usually they just kind of stick them here, and I'm going to utilize these for my hides. I'm kind of in a rush for this because my 2 leopard geckos that were being housed together for a couple weeks, I decided they really don't like each other, and I got to separate them before one kills the other one. So this is where I'm at. Okay, and here's what I meant by the shells. Here's this is from one of my other terrariums I did, which maybe I'll try to show in this video. I'm basically planning on doing like a little, basically like a little shelf, like little tiers, different levels of land to because I've done this for a little while, and I've learned with succulents and stuff, you need better drainage. So I think I'm going to place up more of my plants that want it a little bit more moist towards the bottom, and then I'm going to slowly build these steps up to plant the succulents, in which will have good drainage. And anyways, I'm going to cut this one also just a little bit off so I can make another one of those with a table saw. I suggest, if you're a kid, don't do this at home by yourself. You really need to talk to your parents about this, but yeah, just, be careful. Gonna adjust the saw blade and get this cut up. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't get all the way through with the table saw because I had to put that blade up like scary high to even get where I'm at. I don't even know how much higher it went. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to break it off because I don't really like flat edges anyways, and I'm going to show you how I get rid of those because I think it makes a much more natural look. So I'm just going to take this how it is and snap it off. Might I also just suggest that, I've done quite a few of these, I don't know, I'd say this is probably like my 4th one maybe. But I'm pretty good at, making things look kind of natural and all that. You might need to have a little bit of an eye for it. One big suggestion I will say, and with criticism of myself on this one, is I don't feel like I had enough of this cork bark. I think, your weakest part visually is really going to be the what you're doing with the great stuff, and the insulation, the way you're building it up and coating it. I mean, to me, the best backgrounds have like majority cork bark, and you kind of just use that stuff to fill in the cracks. It holds up better, looks more natural. You know, the cork bark is great because it's mold resistant. I mean, you can use it in hot and humid or in dry vivariums like I'm going to have set up. But again, you know, I would say just, especially if you're like me and save money on a tank, I was just kind of on a budget and it was an emergency thing because my lizards are fighting. But I would just suggest, you know, spend a little bit more money and try to cover like a good 75% of that back wall or whatever you're doing with cork bark first, and I think in the end you will have better looking results. Also, be you know, be wary of what kind of wood you use. You know, this thing, I used to use this in a more humid tank way back, I mean years ago. It's fine now, but it used to have, I mean, spots where like mold started to grow on it. You know, certain woods are only adapted for certain kind of environments. Again, the cork's good because it's good in just about any environment, but stuff like, I think it's called manzanita, grows mold really easy. I've even heard grapevine supposedly grows mold pretty easy. You know, these leopard gecko tanks are ideally supposed to be kept at 20 to 40% humidity. Mine stay typically between like 30 and 60, which, you know, some people will argue is really bad for them, but the humidity is just, I live in Michigan, and I mean, until winter, it's just going to remain humid without me really cranking up a dehumidifier. So, you know, I just basically add some lamps to counteract that, but I'll get more into that later. Basically, just be careful on what you're putting in there. Do a little research. You know, if you're making a dart frog, vivarium, all this stuff, don't go put a bunch of manzanita sticks in there and like, I mean, just do some research. You're going to wonder why there's mold growing all over the place and everything's dying. Also, let me advise you with the disclaimer that, you know, there's a lot of people that really kind of hate on this method and say that, you know, you're not going to be able to keep a leopard gecko with loose substrate, sand and stuff like that. I've had mine in there for a little while. I mean, I haven't done it for an extensive amount of time, but I've heard a lot of people doing this. One thing I will definitely stress about this, do not get a setup like this and then not have the right equipment for your animal. See, I got another one of these heat pads. I'm going to have multiple heat pads in there that I'm going to have in their hides for them. You know, I believe a lot of that impaction stuff is caused by improper husbandry, which I totally agree with. I mean, I don't think you should really be throwing a bunch of calcium sand in there. You're going to see me use some sand, but I'm going to be doing it in a mixture because as far as I'm concerned, you know, if 100% sand is going to give them impaction, if I mix it 50-50, then I'm cutting down the odds by 50%. They're getting 50% sand, less sand in their gut, less time for it to build up and block the passageway. So, again, you know, I think there's a science to, you know, just kind of take advice and you know, maybe adjust it to how you want things to be. You know, so far my lizards are eating and pooping, and you know, they're ravenous, so they don't have any problems, and that's because, I believe, because I keep all their temperatures up, and I see them, you know, ingesting little pieces of sphagnum moss and dirt and stuff all the time. So, I mean, you know, again, it's pretty early on to be saying, but I am a firm believer that they're going to be all right. But again, make sure you have the right equipment. You know, I'm going to have multiple heat sources on here. They're not going to have any issues with regulating their body temperature, which is one of the biggest causes of issues with digestion. Okay, so I'm going to turn this as basically going to be a cave, along with the planter section on top. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have it kind of in the corner here, and then, you know, I'm going to make a cave so underneath it they can go, and I'm also going to put a planter up there with, you know, I'll put a couple of my succulents in there with the more well-drained soil closer to the light. So that way it will have a hide. That's probably where the warm hide will go. That's how I have it on my other tank. And yeah, so I'm going to show you how to, basically I'm going to cut a couple holes in there. I'm going to do multiple holes because I think it's good. I seem to think these, makes more sense to me that they would like multiple ways out, you know. Nothing wants to go into a hole with only one exit out and feel all unsafe. You know, if something tries to get it, you know, there's no escape route. So, also, I think it's important for ventilation. You know, you don't want bacteria and stuff really building up in one area. And since I'm not going to be able to really just pull this out and access it, I'm really gonna want to make sure that I can get some airflow through there. So I'm going to take, I use a drywall saw. You know, some people might really think this isn't a good idea. I really haven't used a hacksaw. This stuff is so like spongy. I really don't think it'd be that easy. Not that this thing is easy to use. This is a pain in the ass, but you know, this is what I'm using. So yeah, I'll show you how it's going to look like with the holes cut out. Okay, so I cut my 2 holes out. As you can see, they're all square and look really stupid and unnatural. But I got a couple little other pieces I can stick on my wall, which is nice. And I'm going to basically, I'll show you how to do this. Again, you know, you might want to use a different saw, I don't know. Be very careful when you're doing this. I cut myself last time pretty good with a utility knife, actually. I'm really happy I didn't cut myself with this thing. That would suck pretty bad. So again, be careful. I don't have a tripod. Basically what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be taking little chunks at the edge of this. And you can even just pluck pieces off. Or, you know, use 2 hands when using a saw. It's probably more safe. But I'm going to be plucking little pieces off and taking the that like flat edge off to kind of really make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to show you a little before and after. This is what I mean. See, this one's a little bit more rounded. I might even, you know, mess with that a little bit more. See this like square thing over here? Basically what I did, and this is why I like this drywall saw, it's not very sharp. It's just got all these big, dull, jagged teeth on it. And it's good. I basically take it at a 45 and just kind of grind it along, and it just shreds little pieces off. It just tears it off one at a time. It doesn't really cut a clean line like I feel like a saw would. This is more like shreds it, and that's kind of what I want to do because it goes better with this texture that's already going on with the wood. Okay, and here's what I was talking about. See, I made them both kind of round like this one, and then I wasn't really happy with that because while, you know, they weren't square, they still looked a little too uniform. So what I did, and I could, you know, I could even mess with this more, but I'm going to leave it because I could go at this for hours. I took a little chunk out here to kind of extend this, make it a little abnormal shape. Same with up here. You know, I just kept plucking until I got a good chunk of this corner out. I mean, you know, just kind of mess around with that stuff. Again, be careful, but, you know, just mess around with that until you get like a little abnormal kind of shape to it, and it'll have a lot more of a natural look. I'm going to do the same thing I did up top, or I should say on these 2 entrances right here. I'm going to do the same thing along the top here because, as I said, this is going to be a planter, and, you know, you're going to see that line, and I don't like the flat stuff. It just does not look natural. So when I'm done with this, it will have a nice, like, kind of a rocky looking, kind of uneven edge on top, and it'll look a lot better. Okay, and here's what it looks like. Kind of, I'm just going to leave it like this at the top. Again, you know, it's not really 100%, but it's just not so flat like it was down here. You know, here's kind of like a before and after. See these like straight lines. You know, I just kind of got rid of that. I mean, most of this will be getting covered up with dirt, but again, I don't like these like 90-degree angles showing through. So if you really want to make your tank look good, I suggest, you know, taking a little bit extra time, trimming some of these pieces up, and okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of this gray stuff, and I'm going to start foaming this piece in where I want it to be. I'm going to do this in steps. I kind of like to because you can always go back and add more on as you go. I can't, for what I'm doing, it would be very difficult for me to lay this all out at once. So basically, I'm just going to put this piece in, you know, let the foam settle up a little bit so this is snug in place, and then I'm going to flip it and start really figuring out where the rest of my pieces. I already know I kind of want this here. I want this kind of coming off somewhere up here probably, but again, you know, I might change my mind, and I think it's just really good. I know for sure I want this in the corner, so I might as well do that and see how the other things fall into place. Okay, so I kind of just put some spray foam on the side, and as you can see, what I was talking about, the color, you know, this is something I'm going to have to cover up, but it's okay. It will be covered. You know, it's just a little easier using the other stuff, I would think. But basically, I'm going to let this kind of dry. Let you see how I kind of just what I did to set it in place. This will, as long as this doesn't fall, this stuff will dry, and eventually this will stay into place. And then I can, from that point, flip this tank back up and start placing some other piece and see where I want to put them. You know, just a warning, you are going to get stuff like that. I don't care how careful you are. You are going to get crap on the outside, or not on the outside, but past the line where you really want things to be. It's okay. I'm going to fix it. You know, you can scrape it off later. Don't try to get it when it's wet. This stuff does not come off your fingers. I really should be wearing gloves, and I may actually go back inside and get them because I will tell you, this stuff does not come off. I don't care, you know, what you use. The only way to really get it off is if it's still wet, you can use a solvent on your hands, which is not very good for you. I paint for a living, and you can see how nasty my knuckles and stuff are from getting chemicals on them all the time. So I've been recently getting more in the habit of using gloves. And I suggest it for this because out of all the stuff I use, this takes the longest to come off. I mean, it'll be on your fingers for like a week. I think I still have a little piece on my nail from weeks ago. You can't really see it. From weeks ago, I did this with my other tank, and it just, like I said, once it cures, it does not come off. On a side note, though, I thought I should correct. Don't use a solvent to clean it off the tank. I know I just kind of put that out there. Don't do it. I'll show you how to do it with a razor later. Don't put any unnecessary chemicals into this tank. The biggest thing, I mean, as it is, we're putting this stuff on it. You know, you don't want to just keep adding up chemicals, and really you're only supposed to use certain things that are safe. And I mean, maybe isopropyl alcohol will get that off, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to put acetone or any kind of denatured alcohol or anything in your tank. So, you know, and I mean, you could even risk like eating at your seal on here with solvents and stuff like that. So stay away from it. Just wait for it to dry. You can get a razor and scrape it off. As long as you're careful, don't scratch a glass, you'll never even know it was there. Here's another tip. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing in because I'm pretty sure I got an idea of where I want it. I actually might tilt it up a little bit, get it some more elevation. But basically, what I'm using here is, you know, just basically anything for a spacer. If I were to put this flat, this isn't how I want it. I want it up more like this. So just go ahead and use, I mean, you can see I've used it before. Just use anything, just be careful on the glass not to scratch it or use anything too heavy. But, I mean, you can see even this brick is doing okay. These things are made to hold a lot of water. Just, you know, to hold this in place, just to prop it up. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. I've seen where people make, you know, stuff with paper, which I might actually do for a planter. You know, or I've even had to use fishing line to suspend a piece of grapevine on my last tank. So just anything you can use to hold it in place in a general area where you want it until this foam settles is really, you're just going to need to do something like that unless you want everything just stuck against the back wall. And again, just to show, you know, use that stuff to hold it up. I actually added another block back there because it was kind of tilting. And I just put some foam underneath just to expand in there and just fill all the cracks and just hold it in place. So again, I'm going to let it dry. Okay, and here's how the pieces look and how they will be. If you notice, I kind of raised this up quite a bit. That's because, I mean, I'm going to be putting at least an inch or two of rocks for drainage. And, you know, then this is going to be kind of a built-up area. So definitely take that into consideration when you're putting your pieces in. You know, I didn't want to put that right down on the floor because I'd be essentially wasting, you know, the space that I have available in the tank. I want to make my succulent garden up here right close to the light. I'm going to probably maybe put another planter over here somehow. But, yeah, so far it's coming together pretty well. Okay, as you can see, I added this piece in right here where I want it. I'm going to put a planter back there. And I have put one of my little, like, shelves, I guess if you want to call it. Unfortunately, I got some of this stuff creeping onto the front. I came pretty close to this edge right here. That's okay. I'm just going to kind of slope the sand up to here. But I don't really want any of that stuff sticking to the front glass. So I put a shim in there to prevent it from really expanding onto there too much. I'm hoping that'll work. Yeah, then I'll just, you know, wait for it to dry a little bit, pull the shim out, and hopefully it'll be good. If not, you know, I can always carve away at it after. Okay, so let me do all this stuff. This is things I'm going to be putting in there. I think I've pretty much got my background set, at least for the upright things I needed, which would be more these outward jutting branches and stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these bricks out, as long as this is dry enough, and I'm going to flip it on its back, and then I'm going to apply all these. I also want to show, these are going to be my planters. I took some window screen. I did two, it's aluminum window screen, because steel would probably, I don't know if they make steel window screen, but I think it would probably rust if it wasn't galvanized. So I got these, I put two of them in to kind of, you know, make it a little doubled up and thicker. But basically these are going to have succulents in them because it's going to drain really good and it's going to be hidden. You go right up against here like that. I'm going to have some dirt in there, and I'm going to have it so it can drain out down into there. And just like up in these other spots, they're going to be pots. I got another one I made too. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit this one or not, but I'm going to try. Okay, in here, this wasn't drying as fast as I wanted, so I just added some more foam under there for support, but obviously I'm going to have to wait a little bit for that, so I just wanted to go ahead and get on the back wall. So I just went and tied the string. If you ever need a tip for how to get stuff to stay, you know, I couldn't leave the brick there because we putting some pieces of wood in there. Also, I kind of just threw some pieces down there. You know, I think it just helps to add in a little bit of texture here and there. I mean, it's not going to be so noticeable really when it's done, but you know, if you get a chance to see it at that little angle instead of seeing all this foam there, you know, I'm just trying to keep the wood kind of consistent throughout. Okay, now that my background is all set and dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I've actually started, I forgot to record, I'm starting to carve away at some of these pieces. What it does is it opens up, you know, makes the porous surface underneath more available. Sorry, my pig over there is kind of making all the noise she wants to make right now. So basically, you do that because it makes the silicone adhere a lot better, and it prevents you from getting these like bald spots in which the yellow colored great stuff would poke through. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and I have successfully carved away at pretty much everything. There's still maybe a little couple spots I might want to get. Okay, and as you can see, I am almost done applying my mixture, which was sand. It was Repti sand, the red, and coconut fiber, and some gravel rocks, some pea gravel. I'm kind of hoping that these rocks stay in. I kind of like how they look. I'm hoping they don't like pull up and then leave a big bare spot. Okay, I might have skipped a little bit, but basically, as you can see, I missed a little bit of sand up here. Basically how I did this, I just put all this caulk in here. These are gloves for this. Push it in. Just stick this mixture in there. And there you go. It sticks right in. It's fixing some of the spots I had to touch up. As you can see, definitely need to fix some of my edges, but it's okay. I'm just going to go with a razor and cut all that off. But I'm pretty happy with this. Been sticking some Spanish moss, is what that is, in case anyone's wondering. Basically, I just kind of put some caulk over top of it, stuck a piece on, and then I just threw some more of that sand on there, and that's basically how I got that look. I'm going to do that in a few more places. I kind of like how this looks because this is going to kind of look like almost like roots under here. I was kind of not digging this empty space, but I think that definitely seems to make it look a little better. Also there where I'm going to be putting this, this cool air plant. It's like, alright, and I think I'm done applying all the moss I want. I think it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Yeah. Also, finally put that in. Didn't show. When I put the window screen in, I thought it would be good to kind of caulk it in and really just make it hold in there really secure as I... Oh, there we go. You still can't see in there. But I also did it in there and in this one as well that you probably can't see that good in. But, yeah. Okay, I have a huge mess of cords back here, but basically this is to show you, I didn't show before, but what I use on my glass to cover this great stuff foam is Montana markers. This is actually the really big one. You probably want to get the medium size to do the outlining. I use this to fill in the blocking, but it's made for graffiti, and it's really good at sticking to like non-porous surfaces and stuff. And I mean, you can get it off, but it's on there pretty good. So that's what I use. Now that it's colored, you know, it's not perfect, and as you can see, it's not going to stick to certain spots because where the silicone's at, paint just does not stick to silicone. At least I know acrylic paint doesn't. So now, even though I got static cave, I got a little area where I can check out my gecko, check on her health, and basically right now I'm just going to put a bubble mailer in front of it, but what I intend to do with this is get one-way tinted film for like glass, because then it'll be black where she sees, so it'll be nice and dark in there, but I will still be able to see through and check on her when I need to. Alright, so what I realized is that you know, when I did the original video for this, I never showed the final results. I kind of just did the rest on my own, and anyways, I added a layer of drainage down here. I bought a bag of pea gravel from Home Depot. It was like $4 or something like that, really cheap. But I did have to drain it. It was kind of nasty. But I didn't put a layer for, you know, I should have put some window mesh in here or something, some screen. That would have maybe separated the drainage layer a little better. I didn't find it so necessary because not much water really ever goes in this tank. But as you can see, I do have a considerable amount of, I mean, that's got to be good, with the gravel, you know, 6+ inches, 7 maybe. So I do have a good amount of space. This is not what it originally looked like when I finished it at first. I've done a lot of modification kind of with the layout and stuff, and really been figuring out my balance. So you can see my humidity is a little high right now. I have been still having kind of some issues with that. At this point, I really think the only thing I can do to bring it down is get a dehumidifier. It's at, you know, like 40 up there, like a 50, 45, 50 down here. Not too crazy high. I will say this basking spot lamp I have makes a big difference. It's like a 75 watt, I think, Exoterra daylight basking lamp, and then I have also an additional heat lamp at night. It might be like 100 watt, just regular heat lamp. And lighting, I found, is like the biggest thing. These this light I got, it's like 20 watts. It's at Home Depot for like $50 or something like that. I've gotten a better light from my other tanks since, but it works. It just kind of occupies a lot of space, but it's full spectrum. I think that's really been kind of helping some of my succulents in the back. I need to do something about these guys aren't getting quite enough light. I'm actually planning on getting some of the 5 watt nano LEDs from ZoomEd. I'll put a little nano dome back right up above there. And I also wanted to get an additional strip light up here. Sorry, I got tape up here because my cat's been really liking to jump on top of the tank. So I got this like makeshift sticky stuff. But I was looking at maybe getting a thin strip that fits along here as well. I decorated this over and over. I've switched a lot of stuff. Basically, I have a big heat pad under here, like I think the size you're supposed to have for a 50 gallon. But the reason I have that is because it really takes so much heat to heat all this up, and my house gets kind of cold. I'm not really sure how efficient it is or really how much it's doing, but down here is the main reason I do it. I offer this little cave system I put in here, which is pretty sweet. I like it a lot, but honestly, she never uses it. She goes on top of the rocks and gets some of the heat from them at night, but she never goes down there. And I checked, it gets to like almost 90 down in there. You know, it's a little warm in there right now. It's 80 on the cool end. I could probably take it down a notch. It's obviously a lot warmer up high where the basking lamp is. But, I mean, it is a little warmer in my room right now. I monitor my temperatures pretty frequently, but, you know, she's hiding in there. I don't know if you can see her. See her little foot right there. Let's see if I can... Hey, Dingus. Yeah, that's a finished product of how that cave turned out. The substrate I used, I made a mixture of, basically I had, it was like either Zilla or Zoomed or something, like jungle bedding mix. I mixed that with a little bit of cypress mulch, not much. All purchased from the pet store, you know, I didn't want anything with like dyes or fertilizers or any of that stuff in them, pesticides. So all that kind of good stuff bagged up at the pet store, but I used, anyways, the jungle bedding, the cedar mulch, or not, I'm sorry, cypress mulch, and I added some red repti sand. I actually kind of got a thick layer up here of it's kind of like a mixture of repti sand and eco earth, which is another additive I added to my soil. It's kind of like a makeshift cactus soil mix. It you know, retains enough water but lets enough drain through for succulents because they need really good draining soil. And that is also what I used. I don't think I mentioned. That's what I used to coat this back here. Was I did my like all this stuff right here. You know, this is how it looks after a while, worn down. Doesn't look quite as good, but I mean, still looks kind of, you know, cool and natural. It's basically orange or red colored repti sand mixed with eco earth, and then I put some of that pea gravel and stuck it on after I applied the silicone caulk. So anyways, I hope you guys like my video. I know that if you made it through this whole thing, you probably are dizzy now, and you know, I don't have a tripod. That's the biggest thing. I'm going to get a tripod. I'm going to kind of just up my production value, I think, for my next video. This one was kind of just thrown together last minute. But, you know, I think it turned out good. If you found the video useful, hit like. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you'd like to subscribe, that would be awesome, because I will definitely be doing some updates on this and some additional information, maybe about my plants and, you know, what kind of stuff I got in here.